Welcome to part 3. Part 1 and part 2 is one video. So in part 3, we're going to talk about how do you determine the transaction price. Let's walk through an example again. Your contract says $100,000, but there's a 10% early payment discount, a potential $20,000 performance bonus, and $5,000 in sales tax. So what is your transaction price for revenue recognition? It certainly is not $100,000. Under ASC 606, you need to estimate what you will actually collect. So the transaction price is the amount you expect to receive from the customer. It sounds ridiculously simple, doesn't it? But contracts often include variable pricing, it includes discounts, and a whole host of other complications. So I'll give you a simple example to show you how to calculate a transaction price when the contract amount is not very straightforward. And keep in mind that the transaction price, it starts with the contract amount and then it adjusts for reality. How is that? You start with the stated price of the contract, which says $100,000, like I mentioned. Start there. You take out the probable discounts that you'll be offering. If you offer 10% for early payment and the customer usually pays early, take out $10,000. Your transaction price assumption at that point becomes 90,000, 100 less 10. Now you add the probable variable consideration, like the performance bonuses, volume discounts, penalties, anything that could change the final amount. The key rule is only include amounts that you are reasonably confident you will receive. For example, let's walk through this calculation. Your base contract is $200,000. Your early payment discount, 10%, is $20,000. Your performance bonus, 50% probability, $15,000, half of $30,000 potential. And your sales tax, it doesn't matter, it's a pass-through. Exclude that. So you exclude that from the transaction price. So your beginning price is going to be $195,000 and your variable consideration rules come into play. A conservative approach is required in this particular case study. Only include the variable amounts when it is highly probable that you won't have to reverse the revenue later. Think 75 to 80% confidence, not 51%. So what are the common variable considerations? You have volume discounts. You don't know the volume, but you'll get discounts on the volume. You have performance bonuses. You have penalty clauses. You have rebates. You have price concessions. So once you start factoring all of this and there's volatility in all those metrics, a real-world example, let's say a SaaS contract with usage-based pricing. If your base subscription is $50,000 annually and your additional usage is $5 per transaction over 10,000, the customer is typically processing, let's say, about 12,000 transactions. Then your transaction price calculation would be about base of $50,000, I guess, $50,000. But your expected coverage is going to be maybe 2,000 transactions times $5. That's 10,000. So your total transaction price is really $60,000. So you need to exclude the sales tax because that is a pass-through. It's collected for the government. You might have to exclude all the reimbursable expenses which are passed through to the vendors. So the amounts that you collect on behalf of third parties or financing components, if there's a significant gap between when you deliver and when you are paid, you might need to adjust for financing. So the simple rule again is that if the payment is more than 1 year after delivery, consider whether financing is significant. Most software contracts, they don't have significant financing. So you don't have to really worry about those financing components. However, if it does, then you have to consider that. And you have to update the requirements. The transaction price is not set in stone. Update your estimates each reporting period based on the new information that you receive. If the customer's usage patterns change or their likelihood of earning bonuses shifts, adjust accordingly. So I think the key takeaway on this is very simple, is that the transaction price is your best estimate of what you will actually collect from the customer. Be conservative with the variable consideration. It is better to recognize less revenue up front than to reverse it later. That is the key principle. Estimate based on all available information, but only include amounts that you are extremely confident about. And it is very, very critical at this point to understand that the amount that you're going to collect is reasonably assured that you're going to collect on. It's not some wishful thinking. We'll get into video 4, where we're going to talk about allocating this transaction price to these performance obligations that we talked about in video 2. All right. So thanks for listening. We'll connect in a few.